The Bible uses the idea of hair to represent people who have strength. Also, the restoration that happens when people fall apart or when they go into a period of weakness, how God can bring us back and restore us. So today I'm joined by Pastor Joe Kerrigan. You're very welcome, Joe.
Thanks very much, Maria. It's great to join you this day and to talk about this subject. And again, one that affects everybody on the planet, really. So it'll be an interesting story to share and to explore.
So, can you tell us why you want to talk about hair? What has hair got to do with anything? What's it got to do with God?
Well, it's really interesting. Like, the hair is one. It's a huge industry in our world, and everybody is about their hair, and some more than others. And some people and some nations like huge use hair from other people's bodies to, they call them extensions, and they buy them at great costs, and getting all of that. It's all about the image. It's all about how you look and how you present yourself to the world and to your suitor. And so hair is yeah, it's quite an amazing thing. And of course, people dye their hair, and people obviously cut their hair every day, to comb their hair. And I always remember my mother saying, make sure you wash your face and comb your hair before you meet the world. And so it's in everybody's DNA, as it were. It's life as we know it. But the deep part of it is what happens when you start losing hair through to illness, or, as I say, somebody like like what Hitler did to dehumanize the Jewish people by taking their hair off, and that's a dehumanization. And then you have this whole concept of the worship of the skull, where everybody's people wear these skulls, and it's like they let go of the sensory, and they let go of the beauty and the glory that God put on man. And death is around that place, and where that goes, where Jesus took his cross to a place called Golgotha, the place of the skull, and he brought about restoration for humanity.
You had this whole fashion, I remember when I was younger, a lot younger, the skinheads. They
Oh, there you
shaved
go.
their heads, and
Full
it was
rebellion.
it was rebellion.
Yeah.
And maybe, their lifestyle may not have been something that was, let's say, very much to do with life. Was it more to do
Uh,
with death, do you think? The lifestyle of the
well, I think,
skinheads? Or was it just fashion?
yeah, the skinheads, they roamed with a dog as well, and yeah, they had that whole rebellious nature. And it's interesting that God said in Samuel not to go near people unless you're cladded with iron, and you go with a shaft of a spear, because they're the sons of rebellion, and they're like thorns in your hand, and they can hurt. So rebellion is as the same as the sin of witchcraft, and ultimately the skinheads embraced rebellion, and and yeah, and they ran with it, and that was all. Yeah, that was in my time as well. And a little bit in that area was the DA hairstyle, which was I won't say it actually over the years, but it was like, like a duck's backside, and the reality was the Teddy Boys had that going on, and Shawadi Waddy was sort of the guys that brought that about. And there's loads of people that did hairstyles. You had the tomahawk hairstyle, which was again rebellion, and people going out, and all the multicolors of that, of
The
that
Mohican as well. The
the
Mohican was
Mohican,
hair in the
that's it. The
middle, but
Mohican,
shaved
yeah,
at the
yeah,
sides. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, interesting. Like, it's amazing the amount of people had different hairstyles to represent different expressions and different lifestyle choices that they made at the time. And as one man now who's in his 60s, he said, "Oh, I wish I had all my hair back. I wish I had all my hair back." And he was a Mohican, you see. And he loved his mods, and he loved this, and he loved that, and he went through all of those periods of expressing himself as wild as he can, and as yeah, it was very creative, I think, you know.
It is. It's a
So
complete change of image. You know, if somebody
yeah,
wants to change their image or start a new chapter in life or disguise themselves even, to look like
yeah,
somebody else, just
yeah.
change your hair color, change the style. It can really transform a person.
Yeah, that's right. And can stick a wig on. Again, and modern day wigs is, as I say, to some cultures they're their life. Like, you know, that they have long dreadlocks, or they have long extensions, and you know, or they might have on a wig to cover over something that's drastic and dramatic. You have alopecia, and alopecia is all because of stress levels, and you have all of that happening. And then, of course, you have just the natural colouring of hair and the dyeing of hair. And I used to oftentimes say to my wife, Lorraine, when I'd come into the house and there'd be the smell of ammonia in the atmosphere, and I said, oh, there's death in the family, you know? And she's looking at me, she said, what do you mean? I said, yeah, there's a stench of death, like, because that's what it smelled like. And she said, oh, yeah, very funny. I'm dyeing my hair. And I said, oh, and then of course she'd just wash it out, and then she'd get the hair dryer and she'd blow it out, and out comes this whole new woman, and new man. Like, people, men and women dye their hair today, of course, and you have this whole new expression of life. But they have to embrace the smell of ammonia. It's like embracing death to release life. And again, you need a good hair dryer to get the fullness into the hair, you know, for what you want to express.
Yeah,
So it's really
everybody
cool.
wants a full head of hair as well. Plenty of
That's right.
volume. Volume is massive. There's so many
Yeah.
products to help you get the volume in your hair. Do you think hair, we could say hair is cosmetic, you could live without it, but do you think it is actually more than a symbol?
Well, I think you could live without it, but I do think, and I think, look at in the natural, people lose their hair for many, many reasons. But I think ultimately God gave us hair as a covering, and it's a thing of beauty, it's a thing of adornment, but it's also a thing of spirituality. I know Absalom in the Old Testament, which he was the son of David, had real heavy hair, and it says when they cut his hair, it was like 7 kilos. I said, "Wow, how could you carry that hair around like you'd be like a lion's mane, like?" And and yet that is what he expressed himself. He had real beauty and real long maned hair, and long hair was part of his identity. And as we were talking about Samson, he was of the identity of the Nazarite. He was a Nazarite that served God, and they were not allowed to cut their hair or put any blade to their skin,
This
and
was a
they were also not
sect,
allowed.
sort of a
It was a
sect, a
sect, yeah.
group, yeah.
It was quite extreme, and they were not allowed to take alcohol, and they were not allowed to do certain rituals if they wanted to serve God. And Samson was of that, and he was dedicated by his mum to God, and this is
Mm.
what God required of him, to serve him on the earth, and he became one of Israel's judges. Now, yeah, you know, and his whole strength was in his hair, and that's what it was. And when he revealed that to his, his lover, which was Delilah, when he revealed the deepest secret of his heart, and he played with her in those places, but he ultimately gave away his secret. And the secret was that my strength is in my hair, and no man should, nobody should cut my hair. And of course, when he fell asleep, she cut all of his hair off, and then he lost all of his strength. That's the way the story goes. And he became like any other man on the earth. So his captors came in and they bound him, and he couldn't break their bonds. And they took him into captivity, and they took his eyes out, unfortunately. And but what they didn't realize was that his hair grew back, and his strength came back, and up came Samson again, and his strength was restored. And that's an interesting thing for us, for all of us who are dealing with cancer and things like that, and alopecia. And they're two areas that I really wanted to talk a little bit about. And I just think that, when people come into, like, alopecia, that, they're highly stressed, and they've nowhere to park their anxiety. They've nowhere to give their problems to. And God just comes alongside and says, listen, come to me, all ye who are weary and heavily laden, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am low and humble of heart, and you will find rest for your soul. And I think sometimes in those places of anxiety, God again speaks and says, do not be anxious about anything, but in all things with prayer, petition, thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God that passeth understanding. You'll not be able to grasp it, but it'll guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus, and it'll keep the hair on your head.
So
And that's alopecia.
you have a story today. It's about a girl losing her hair.
Yeah, and that's what prompted me to tell the story. But and after it, maybe we could talk a little bit about cancer and those kind of areas that really create a lot of problems for people. So this story is about a young lady, and I was up with her mum, and I was talking to her mum, and she was telling me she was in the hospital, and she was saying, I got a delivery yesterday off the postman, and he delivered me hair. And I says, oh, I says, yeah, I got me extensions, I got them from Amazon, and they're not half the price. And I said, oh, okay, I don't really know much about extensions, And so in any way, she said, I just threw them at the bottom of the pram, and I was wheeling the baby down to the shops, and then when I came home, I was taking all the messages out, and I was loading everything. And this girl had only become a Christian now about 2 months. So she was really only learning to walk with God. And but then she went looking for her hair that was so excited about on the way out, that the postman had handed to her, and she couldn't find it. She couldn't find her hair, and she just kept on saying, I've lost my hair. I've lost my hair. Where is my hair? And our kids were coming in, and they were creating a little bit of it. And she said, just leave. I'm under stress now. Leave, because this is really important to me. And of course, she couldn't find her hair. She had lost her hair in the journey from her house to the shops. And of course, she went around to the friend who led her to Jesus and talked to her about Jesus. And she went around and said, well, so much with you and your Jesus, He says, how could he do that to me? How could he have let me lose my hair when I really was waiting for it, and it was the highlight of my life, and it was going to give me back my dignity and my beauty and my respect? How could he do that to me? And she looked at her, and she was a little bit fumbled by it and wondered, what is wrong? And I said, I've lost my hair. Do you not get how serious this is? And she said, did you pray about it? Don't give me that. Don't give me that. Did I pray about it? Do you not realize the problem that's going on here? She says, listen, you need to involve God in everything, So why don't we just pray and ask God to find your hair for you? And she says, oh, okay. And she calms her down, and both of them pray. I said, okay, I'm going home. I can't stand it. I'm just all anxious, and I just don't know what to do. And I said, okay, well, go on. I'll see you tomorrow. So she went home, and she ruffled and tumbled in her bed, and she was really sort of in and out of talking to God and being angry with God and judging him, and then blaming herself. How could she do such a thing? And how could she lose her hair and be so stupid? Of not putting it inside in the house. Why did she throw it under the pram? And all of that. The blame game goes on.
Yeah,
So
because it
anyway,
is
she wakes up the
expensive.
next,
I know it is very
very
expensive.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, up to €400,
Yes.
getting them put in, apparently. What a
But the hair
price,
itself, yeah, is
Yeah,
very,
really.
especially if it's real hair. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And so in any way, she was sort of giving the kids their breakfast, and she's a little bit down. And next of all, a knock came on the door, and it was the postman. And she's looking at him in bewilderment. And he said, somebody found this parcel that I gave you yesterday morning, and they returned it to the post office. So here it is back. This is what I gave you yesterday morning. And she got her hair restored. So she was leaping around the place, couldn't believe that somebody had put it back in the post office, and she got her hair restored to her that day. And then she was able to go down and get them fitted, and she beautified herself, and the world was perfect again. And yeah, and our friend said, that's because you prayed. That's because you prayed about it. And God needs us to involve him in all of our situations and all of our circumstances. And when we have great loss, and when we are anxious, and when we're distressed, and he's the restorer of our soul, and might I say, the restorer of our hair. And he
Yes.
takes away the anxiety that creates alopecia, and takes away the anxiety that causes fallout. And it is great fallout. And so the great fallout, I think, again, is just the sensitivity of taking chemicals, like, you know, when you have to, you know, when you have cancer, and you have or you have to take steroids, or you have to take the different medications that they put you on to fight the cancer.
Hmm.
And that creates great fallout and a disruption in your natural body, and how your hair then pays the price. And all of a sudden you see it coming out in clumps, and it's coming out in the hairbrush as you brush it, or, you know, just naturally falling out around you.
Yeah.
And again, I can say that I am the victim of that as well. I've had that happen to me when I was 30, and have it happening to me now a little bit, but not as much now, but back then definitely. And yeah, we'll all walk in these places where, back when I was 30, I had serious sort of situations going on in my brain, and the medication was steroids, and it caused me hair to lose its strength and to fall out. And now at this stage, I have cancer, and again, it's addressing that whole area of your body and your metabolism, and how that creates anxiety and fear and worry. And your hair falls out because of medication, and because of your own stress levels. And I'm just sort of wanting to share that, like, in a general way, that, you know, once, and Lord willing, we will get past these places, that we will be healed. And healing is either through the doctors and the way they prescribe medication to deal with the assault of cancer on your body, or healed from a supernatural way, where God will intervene and heal you, as his intervention into your life brings you peace and restoration and healing. And that's why he died for you. And in that place of that, your hair then starts coming back, and it'll oftentimes come back stronger, you know.
Yeah.
And they're the sensitivities of loss, and the loss of hair. And
Yeah.
again, I want to. Sorry.
Yeah, you were talking there about hair extensions, um, and wigs, all these things. And your
Mm,
story was funny, but
yeah,
some people need hair. They need the wigs.
absolutely.
They need the hair
Yeah,
extensions just to make maybe what's a very thin head of hair look fuller, look more normal. You can imagine a young girl who has very little hair. She wants to
mm,
enhance it. So some of these wigs, even though they are very expensive, they are medical. They're for medical purposes. Um,
absolutely,
but just
absolutely.
to add to your story, Joe, there, I lost my hair 3 years ago myself,
Right.
and I found it very difficult, I must say. And
Yeah.
I know I asked you that question in the beginning, is it just cosmetic? We can live
Mm,
without hair. And of course, everybody says it'll grow back again. You can live without it. But you lose your eyebrows, you lose your eyelashes. And
Yes.
at some point, you look at yourself in the mirror. It's usually in the middle of the night. I used to draw on eyebrows and I would
Right.
draw like lines around my eyes. And I would go
Okay.
to bed with those on. I wouldn't wash them off.
Mm.
I don't know how healthy that was. I didn't care. And I would
Yeah.
usually have a hat on because it was winter and I needed to keep my head warm. And that was because I couldn't bear to go to the bathroom during the night and look in the mirror and see like my face. My face was gone, my hair was gone, eyelashes
Mm.
gone. It was like my
Mm.
identity was gone.
Yeah.
So for me, I know it did grow back and I've got lots of hair
Yeah.
again now, and it's
It's
great. It
great.
came back
Yeah.
perfectly.
Yeah.
But yeah, during the time it was a real for a woman because
Yeah.
the Bible does say that, it's a woman's glory, her hair.
Absolutely.
It is
Yeah.
difficult to go through that.
And it is a crown of glory. And it
Yeah.
is a difficult thing when you lose it. And I think that's what it brought up in me when I heard this girl's story. That it's one thing being funny and it's one thing putting in the extensions and wanting to change your image and yet I know that there's this very, very real sensitive place of loss, what you have just described so well, that you can't even look in the mirror at the reflection of your identity any longer because I've lost my hair. And it's not even about the cancer anymore. It's I've lost everything that represents me. And my
Mm.
image is now gone. And where am I? Where have I gone? Look at the loss. And nobody really, when they're looking at you, when they're looking in, they know you're sick, but they don't know the trauma that it's bringing and what you have to come to live in and live out of now. Whereas before, like with your beauty of hair and how that makes you look and what you are accustomed to, what you are reared in, this assault on your body is far deeper than than just like hair loss. It's actually a death sentence within. And you're praying and you're seeking God, and yet your hair is telling its story. It's telling the story of the depth of the loss that is present at the time.
Mm.
And yet, I just want to say that, just like you, Maria, and thanks, for being so open. And even as I say myself, like in those days when I lost my hair, that it's hard to tell the story. It's hard to be as open as that with the world. And the world doesn't necessarily understand how deep the pain that can be of that loss. And thank God for wigs.
Yeah.
And thank
I
God
didn't
for
wear a wig. It was too itchy. I didn't like it.
and
So
yet, and you see, and that's the reality.
yeah, no, I
That's the
didn't.
reality.
That just felt worse to me.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
reminded
that's
me more. I've got something itchy on my head. I can't bear it. So I just wore a
yeah,
lovely soft hat and I was comfortable in that and big earrings. Kind of
yeah.
distract people from what and
Very
just but
good.
mainly to distract myself. But yeah,
Yeah.
but not only are you going through the loss of the hair, but you're also feeling very ill.
Mm,
So
mm,
there's a lot going on for people. It is,
mm,
and I'm glad that you've brought this up, that the Bible talks about God knows what it's like. God knows what it's like for
mm.
somebody to lose their hair, because there's a lot about it in the Bible.
Yeah, he says he knows every hair that's on your head, and and he knows every hair that falls, and that's how sensitive he is to your nature and your body image and everything that you are living out of and feeling, and yeah, he knows, and that's really important to him, and like I love the story of the woman who had nothing else to offer him when she came in looking for his forgiveness and looking for to serve him. And amazingly, she crawled into a male dominated room, crawled in, and she was in floods of tears. And she washed Jesus' feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. Like that a woman would use all of her beauty and she would give it to him and she would dry his feet with everything that beautified her. Because, like, you know, as I say, yeah, it's something that is so real. And I remember Lorraine would say to me when we had a motorbike, she said, I hate this bike. I hate this bike. It wasn't about the bike at all. It was because the helmet crushed her hair. And and anything she did with her hair, the helmet sort of just annihilated it, and she lost all of her image again. And
I heard the
yeah, there's so many
story.
things.
I heard the story about this guy who went to a prayer meeting and he had all his hair spiked up. And at the prayer meeting, people put their hands on his head and it just flattened down his hair. His hairstyle was absolutely ruined. And that's all he thought about when they were praying for him was
Yeah,
his
yeah,
hair.
it does. Well, I wonder what God answered his prayer with.
So be careful if you're praying for somebody. Don't put your hand, don't press down
On
their
their hair,
hair.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And and again, I think hair restoration is a huge thing nowadays as well, where medically people will go away to Turkey or they'll go away to some foreign country
Mm.
because of the expense of getting hair restoration done. And they'll go through this grueling experience of taking hair from the back of their neck and their just the back of their head and put it on the front of their head just to get hair growth and hair frolics being put in. And I mean, like, they could take out 2,000 frolics and they'd have them all there, and then you go out for a cup of tea. So they've taken them out under duress, blood and needle, and then you'd have to go straight back in, and they'd be putting them back in the front. Well, wow, that is grueling. Now it works because I've seen people who've got it done, and it's amazing. It really is. It really gives them back their youth again.
Mm.
And then again, as I say, some people naturally lose their hair, and they probably can't afford that, or they don't see that they want to put themselves through that process of pain and suffering, to get a restoration head of hair. But yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, the way it all
Hair,
works?
yeah. So there's also the issue of unwanted hair. So what I think is funny is that women don't
Yeah,
want hair in certain parts of their body, and they go through all sorts of severe
grueling experiences.
agony, pulling hairs, plucking hairs, waxing hairs. Whereas
Absolutely.
men love hair. You know, it's a
Yeah.
sign of
Well, strength, they
masculinity,
say.
you know. And then you've got beards. Beards are
Yeah.
interesting as well.
Yeah.
Talk to me about beards. Are they important to
Well,
men?
I don't wear one. I don't necessarily wear one. My son wears one, and some people wear beards to hide their face and hide their image, and then other people groom the hair on their face for image and for attraction. And it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Like the whole thing of a beard and how people wear them, like, and they mightn't have a hair on their
Mustaches?
head. The mustaches, yeah, and it's real French, and the twin, and people are attracted to all kinds of levels of hair and hair attraction, and realistically, yeah, what is your image? What is your image? And yeah, I do believe that. I was just shaving myself there, and I was laughing, saying I'll be talking now in a minute about hair and wanted and unwanted hair, and and yeah, it's just funny how it all works, like, how the whole image of hair. But I still come back to the whole identity of God has created us fearfully and wonderfully, and He's given us a crown of glory. And He says that you will grow old with gray hair, and it'll be your crown of glory. And that's are we so, like, a lot of people stop with the dyeing, and they stop with the wigs, and they just let their hair become naturally grey, and they finally succumb to their age, and people look at them and they accept them, and every 6 weeks they attempt to change their image, and that all ceases when you finally accept that and getting old, and the color is gone and the strength is gone. And yeah, thank God for hair. Hair is an
But
amazing thing.
there is a huge grey hair movement at the moment. And, there's even people who are quite famous who've allowed their hair, even at a very young age, to go grey or
Right,
white. And
right.
it's quite a trend at the moment. It really, really is beautiful. White hair and grey hair can be
Yes.
absolutely beautiful on people. I know when people are a lot younger, they don't want to go that direction. But
Mm.
as you say, it's lovely to see more mature people let the greys come in.
Allowing it to be what it's naturally meant to be.
Yes.
And that takes away the stress
And
and
it's
takes
very
away the
beautiful. Yes.
yeah. Well, I don't think anything that God created isn't beautiful. And it all has its seasons and it all has its stages of life. And I remember looking at a particular woman, and she had this beautiful long hair as I was walking up behind her. And then I got the fright of my life because her face didn't match her hair. And she was a very old woman, and yet she had very young, long hair. And I was a little bit frightened actually by the image that it
Mm.
projected. And we can do that. We can go overboard and we can, present ourselves in a wrong way, and we can wear young women's hair when we're that little bit older, and men, not only men, women, but men as well, wear hairstyles that are just young and not meant to be on an older man's head. And it's all because they're sort of not accepting their journey and they're not accepting their identity or their age on the earth. And I think there's something really beautiful. Again, I don't have any hair color. I used to put it in as a 40-year-old man. And maybe that's just an insecurity that you're just, doing it. And yeah, but like, I think it's okay to wear your hair gray. And I certainly do. And it's okay for me. And yeah.
Just Joe, before we wrap it up there, we have a few minutes left.
Oh,
Would you
good.
just speak to somebody maybe who's going through a cancer journey at the moment and they're facing into that, the possibility, or maybe they have lost their hair, maybe they're going through the suffering of being on chemotherapy, surgery. Just talk about a little bit about how you could console somebody like that or how they could turn to God during that season in their life.
Yeah, well, that's really the reason why we're having this conversation and telling this story. It's such a sensitive place. And I think God is, again, just is very moved by what's moving you and knows the trauma that you're going through and knows the warfare that goes on in your life and the emotional disturbance that it's making. And nobody really knows because you're the only one that lies on your pillow at night and you're the only one that is say that, as you quite rightly described, go out and have to face your image every night and every day. And yet at the start of this journey, they do offer you therapies and they do offer you like caps and things to preserve. And it's good to listen to the medical world as you journey into, your treatments, because your treatments are harsh on your body and they have severe repercussions like that. They will severely affect your hormones and severely affect your whole metabolism. And and I just think it's good to listen to someone maybe who's 2 or 3 weeks up the road from you as you go in to have your chemotherapy, because oftentimes they will have made decisions that they might have regretted, or they might have thought this was the best decision that I ever made. I know that with my own niece who is in her 40s and she has serious breast cancer, and she listened to another lady and a nurse, and they advised her to take on a particular road of, and she wasn't going to do this, but because of their advice she did it and she was delighted. Now she is light on her in her hair, and it didn't save all of her hair, but there is ways around certain things that you can do before, as I say, you go after you come out of your treatment, everything, Lord willing, will restore itself. but again, people find it difficult to empathize because they haven't really gone through what you're starting to go through. And the only one you can turn to is the Lord. And he said, cast all your cares upon me. I care for you. I care for you. And I know every hair that falls. And I'm able and I'm willing. And he's the one that restores all things, even your hair. And he's the greatest restorer. And yeah, I just love that. I just love that we can just rest in his presence when everything is so difficult, because chemotherapy is a very difficult and lonely and isolated place to be in, and everything falls out, everything. And yeah, your whole body literally becomes hairless, and it's quite strong, and quite, yeah, can be dark at times. So put your hope in Jesus and
Mm.
invite him into that space, invite him into that place of mind dealing with what you're dealing with, and ask him to help you, and ask him to love you in that place and help you to love yourself, because oftentimes you stop loving yourself and you fight against the cancer and you fight against the treatments, and you're angry and you're judgmental and you're furious. But pray and talk to him. He created you fearfully and wonderfully, and he can restore you and bless you and carry you through. And that's what I'd advise you to do,
Mm.
because the loss of your hair is one thing, but the loss of your life is a whole different thing. So you need to be very wise in your decision making, and not to go it alone, and not to think that you can do it without the medical world. And I know they're all these private decisions that people make, but at the end of the day, be blessed in your journey and know that God loves you and cares for you, and he is able to bless you in all the places you find yourself, and in every season of your soul.
Joe, yeah, just to add to that, I really would recommend for people to get support and to go to a church where there is a lot of people there to pray for you. I think that
Yeah.
was really, really big help to me. We're just right up to the end of the program, so just really want to ask people to subscribe. We need subscriptions. It helps us get these videos out there. YouTube insist on it, and that's how we get them out there. And if anybody wants to contact you, Joe, you can be found at Trinity Church in Dublin.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Maria, and lovely talking to you today, on a very sensitive subject of hair.
God bless, Joe. See you
You
next
too.
time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.